Well, what have we learned since the end of the lockout? What your pal Sully has learned is don't sleep, because while you're asleep, something huge and something seismic can happen. And it happened not with the Astros, not with the Yankees, but with the Minnesota Twins. We're bound friend of the podcast, Brandon Warne, to talk about that and the impact of what happened while you were in your slumber. This is Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all the Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. As you can tell from the lower third there, you can call me Sully. This episode is being recorded and dropped very early in the morning on the 19th day of March, 2022. Thanks so much for making us your first listens. We're available on all your free podcasting catchers. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On MLB Pods. Same handle for Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. So yeah, it is before 5:30 in the morning here in the luxurious Locked On MLB studios in Pasadena, California, overlooking the historic Rose Bowl. When I went to bed, the world was different than when I woke up. In fact, I was a guest on a podcast that recorded on Friday that is being dropped on Sunday, where I talked about Carlos Correa, and I said, I'm almost certain he's returning to the Houston Astros for a short-term deal. Well, he signed a short-term deal, but he's not going to the Astros. No. He's not going to the Yankees. No. He's not going to the Angels. No. He is going to the Minnesota Twins. And with one move, a bunch of things happened, including the American League Central becoming a lot more interesting. Well, I could speak for Minnesota Twins fans, but I've never stepped foot in the state of Minnesota, and that would seem silly. So I'm bringing back to the show, friend of the podcast, and let's just call him a Minnesota Twins expert and fanatic, Mr. Brandon Warne. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, man, I'm happy here to prevent people from seeing a silly Sully. So it's me just here kind of catching my breath still. I mean, I'm old, so I went to sleep fairly early and woke up in the middle of the night to this, and I'm still kind of shook, to be honest with you.
So for those of you who don't know, Brandon, you're best known for your work for Access Twins, and you are a diehard Minnesota Twins expert. And you know, you have who do you have up there? 18. When I think of 18 and the Twins, I think Don Baylor and his home run he hit off of John Tudor. Who is that back there?
16, Jason Kubel.
Oh, okay. It looked like
the lighting's not great. I
it's
tried to focus on the foreground instead of the background.
It's 5:15 in the morning here. You will forgive me if I didn't necessarily zoom in on there, but I demand credit knowing that Don Baylor wore number 18.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
When he won. Okay, but enough of the late, great Don Baylor. Carlos Correa. Let's just start with the absolute first part. How the hell did this happen?
Well, I mean, this Twins front office is very tight-lipped. We didn't know the Sonny Gray trade was coming either from a media standpoint. I was literally driving to, I think, lunch with my brother, and it just kind of, boom, exploded. And I mean, that's obviously not as big a deal as Carlos Correa, but they have a type. They really do. They don't let anything out. And I said that last night with regards to Trevor Story I was confident something was going to happen. I just thought Trevor Story, and I never in a million years thought Carlos Correa.
Yeah. I mean, I thought everything. Well, then it just shows you what I know. When it became clear that Correa was not going to sign a long-term deal because of the implication with his agent,
yeah,
I thought that led him to an absolute, how do I say it, commuter lane to the Yankees, where they would be able to say, yes, we have a short-term big splash with Correa. He'll leave, and we'll put in one of our Volpe, who's their big prospect. They'll, okay, that's officially a no-brainer. And then they worked out the deal for Kiner Falefa. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to the deal, the Falefa deal, and my thoughts on the Yankees. As Stacey Gotsulias of Locked On Yankees, I asked if she wanted to join the show, and she said, no, I have one thought: Brian Cashman is an idiot. But I'll get to that because it actually is more than just hyperbole. I think we can prove in a court of law that Brian Cashman should not be the general manager of the Yankees. But let's stick with Minnesota. By putting Correa, it's funny. I went to the depth chart that I go to from time to time at cbssports.com because I like how it's laid out at cbssports.com. It's very easy to read. And as of this recording, Gio Urshela is still listed as the shortstop. This is how fast and unexpected that the folks at CBS Sports are still asleep and haven't filled it in. There's no one working the graveyard shift on the Carlos Correa shift. What this does to the Minnesota Twins infield is it allows them to be more flexible about where they play Urshela. It allows them, obviously, you have Correa is going to be at shortstop. You're going to have Jorge Polanco, Arias. I mean, all of a sudden you have depth in the infield. And who are going to be playing? Is it they have Kirillov? Is that how you pronounce his name? Sometimes there are names thank you. Sometimes there are names that I haven't said out loud because, quite frankly, there wasn't a lot to talk about with the Twins last year. They suddenly have a very good infield, and with Buxton in center, they're as good up the middle defensively as any team in the American League right now.
Yeah, Ryan Jeffers behind the plate is more than capable as well, and Miguel Cano will mix in, and they'll have Gary Sanchez probably DH. And I think, too, the Twins were similar to the Yankees in the sense that they have shortstop prospects they're waiting on as well. Now, they can decide if they're going to commit to Correa long-term and trade one of those guys and get some pitching help, or they can have those guys waiting in the wings if Correa opts out or gets traded if this season doesn't go as they plan. It maintains a lot of flexibility, which is what this front office, has really shown to be interested in, and that had gone away with the Josh Donaldson contract, a guy who was now 36, 2 years left at about $50 million total. So they kept it fluid, and that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this club right now, which, yes, they had a very bad year last year. They lost, 88, 89 games last year?
Yeah, and it was bad.
Yeah. At some point, you say they lost a bunch. But remember, this is a team, I know you don't have to remember this, but for my listeners out there, this is a team who just a few years ago was a division champion. Just a few years ago was a 100-win club. I wonder, I don't remember what they got in the Barrios trade with Toronto last year. I don't know if any of those chips that they got back were particularly valuable, but by bringing in Sonny Gray, they added a pitcher. Did Pineda sign with them, or did he wind up going elsewhere?
He signed with the Tigers. They brought in Dylan Bundy instead.
Oh, but that's right. Okay, that is listed here. That's right. I couldn't. Forgive me. Some of these things are happening fast. I remember seeing Pineda's name on my feed. I couldn't remember if he resigned. So they essentially replaced Pineda with Dylan Bundy, and added Sonny Gray to the rotation. They probably still need another arm, but the fact of the matter is that if you look at the Central now, I still think Chicago is the best team in the Central right now. And I do think that the Tigers are building something kind of interesting, and they're probably not going to be ready to be a major contender in 2022, but I think they will be in 2023 once this pitching gel. But if they have bounce back seasons from some people, it would not stun me if the Twins have a winning season and are a contender for one of the wildcard teams, especially if the White Sox regress. There are lots of times you have a year where you look at, well, this team's clearly the division winner, and they have a disappointing year. Look at what happened with the San Diego Padres last year, who went in looking like they were going to be champs, and for a period they had the best record in baseball, and they had injuries and a collapse, and next thing you know, they wound up with a losing record. I don't think that's going to happen with Chicago, but it just takes a couple of injuries, and next thing you know, a division is wide open, and you have a guy who makes his teammates better with Correa. And I think that suddenly the AL Central looks a lot more interesting than it did just at the beginning of the just at the end of the lockout.
Yeah, and even that happened to the Twins. I mean, you win 100 games in 2019, and you have a pretty nice year in the abbreviated 2020, and then you fall apart. These things happen. The Twins look built to handle the Central, not dominate or anything like that, but hang at least. And yeah, so I mean, things happen, and you just got to put yourself in the best position to win, and that's what the Twins are trying to do here. Now, as far as the pieces in the Barrios deal is Austin Martin, who another option at either third base, shortstop, in the outfield, and then Simeon Woods Richardson, a pretty nice pitching prospect. So they've got a nice little stable of near MLB ready pitchers, which might make sense to make a trade for a Frankie Montas, a Sean Manaea.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Bassett would have made some sense before he got traded to the Mets. It's lining up that they can, again, envision short-term success without messing with their long-term flexibility. Like, really, their only long-term deals are Polanco, Kepler, Buxton. Everybody else is kind of on a short-term come-and-go deal. And if they decide in a year that they want to line Scott Boris's pockets with $300 million, they have that option because they'll be able to afford $30 million per year with Josh Donaldson off the books and, no extension to Barrios, which is what they had hoped to do in the first place. So it's a very fluid situation, but they definitely have gone into this saying they're going to do everything they can to improve. And I did not see this coming in a million years.
Well, let me tell you something. I think we all woke up and got a big jolt, and I need a little bit of energy to keep going here because this floors me. And one way I like to get my energy is to grab myself a Built Bar. This time of the year, a lot of people are giving up on their New Year's resolution, but not your pal Sully. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat better and to be more healthy. And an easy way to do that is to have a Built Bar because they're so delicious. It doesn't feel like you're doing a resolution. It feels like you're having a cheat meal. Have you tried the Built Bars? Have you had one? Brandon, have you?
Yes. I was wondering if you were asking a rhetorical question in the ad because I was
I know.
They're amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah, but the puffs are fantastic. They're the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They're a treat, and they're covered in 100% chocolate. And the puffs have become a fan favorite with incredible flavors like yummy cinnamon churros, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. They're also good. They're going to be your new favorites. Now, my personal favorite would be, I love the raspberry that's covered in chocolate, but I love cookies and cream. I love the mint brownie, the coconut almond. They're great. They're low-calorie, high-protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They're better. Did you know that candy bars are not good for you? I was not aware of that until reading this copy. But you take a look at Built Bars, scroll down to the macros charts, you're going to be blown away because most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugars, 4 grams of net carbs, 17 grams of protein. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how they do it, but they do it every time. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and get 15% off at Built.com. And hey, while we're here, a little bit about another terrific show in the Locked On Podcast Network called Locked On MLB Prospects. It's hosted by friend of the show, Lindsey Crosby. He's a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the Major League Baseball stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the shocking news of the Minnesota Twins bringing on board Carlos Correa. Warne of Access Twins is our guest for the day. So tell me your thoughts. I mean, we talked a little bit how this puts the Twins in a better situation, and especially if the White Sox could potentially stumble. How do you see, because they just pulled off the deal with Gary Sanchez, but they do have Jeffers as their catcher. That's their catcher, right?
Yeah,
Am I?
Ryan Jeffers. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not losing my mind. Okay.
No,
Well,
you're
I was
not.
wrong about Pineda. I was wrong about Pineda.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something that you have a player here where the kind of domino effect and why sometimes these trades work and it's not in a vacuum. You have someone, you could take someone like Sanchez, who is undeniably talented, but really, really struggled after, having his big breakout in New York a few years ago. He really seemed to struggle, and pitchers didn't like to throw to him. And he kind of became, I don't want to use the word pariah, but he became someone that the Yankees and the Yankee fans kind of turned on after absolutely loving him when he burst onto the scene. I wonder if a change of scenery, getting out of that environment, getting out of that pressure, and saying, hey, do you want to put your catcher's gear away? We got a catcher.
Yep.
Just get your bat. And to have someone like Carlos Correa, who knows a little bit about being around fans who boo him, who knows a little bit around having media scrutiny about him and performing well under that circumstance. Whether or not, I'm not forgiving any of the stuff that the Astros did that we all know that they did, but he certainly knows how to deal with that. To have him come in, be there, done that guy, to say, hey, man, come follow me and take the pressure off of Gary Sanchez. That could be like you're acquiring Correa and you're also unlocking this potential talent. The pressure, you put him at DH, there's now officially zero pressure on Gary Sanchez. And what that could do to your offense, it could almost make up for not having Nelson Cruz anymore.
Right. Yeah, it kind of comes down to if you can embrace being the heel, if that makes sense. If you can be, if he can handle people booing you and kind of relish that, then you are going to be comfortable in your own skin. And I think that's what they're hoping for, is to put him in a spot to be comfortable in his own skin. And whether or not the addition of Correa helps with that is going to remain to be seen. But I think it's going to be, it's going to be good for him to see if he can relish the role as the, if people hate you, you have to show that you can handle people hating you. Again, like I said, in wrestling, you're the heel and you take in that attention. I think Correa and the Astros showed the ability to do that. And if they
Correa
can give,
did. I think Correa did. I think some of the other players didn't.
Sure. And if you can dispense some of that to Gary Sanchez, who also isn't going to be the bad guy in Minnesota. Nobody's going to expect anything out of him. They traded Josh Donaldson and $50 million. This is a fresh start. Put away your catcher's glove, find the best bat you can find, and go bat 6th or 7th for a while. Mm-hmm. It's a fresh start, and honestly, it's a really good move for the Twins to get him. And then Urshela, who can play a little defense at third, can move around a little bit. And apparently he's a really good clubhouse guy. So it's I like the direction that this is all going. There's still room to go and grow as far as they kind of tip their hand. If you trade for Sonny Gray and you lop $50 million off your payroll and you trade your starting catcher, that doesn't all add up. And that's how you know that they had something else coming. And the problem was, as that list of free agents kind of winnowed down, you're like, wait a second, Carlos Correa was never even a thought in our minds, our collective minds as Minnesotans. And now it's like, all right, what's next? Like, we're not trying to be greedy or anything, but what's next?
Well, you brought up the idea that on your Twitter feed, like you thought this was a countdown for Trevor Story to be heading to Target Field.
Yep.
And again, I thought it was after the deal that sent Connor, as I mentioned before, after the deal that sent Donaldson and Connor Falefa packing to New York, I didn't see another landing place for Correa because I thought it ticked every box. I thought it ticked the box of it would be the short-term deal. The Astros would still be able to develop their shortstop, but you still have the feel good of, hey, we got the band back together to try to get back to the back-to-back pennants. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to have a horrible domino effect in Houston, especially if Story signs elsewhere, because I think Correa meant more. And I talked about this with H-Town Wheelhouse of Locked On Astros, I think Correa meant more to this team than anybody else. I think Correa understood the importance of the team back when they were cute and cuddly in 2017. We didn't know what they were doing. And I think he embraced the heel more than anybody when all the boos were happening. In the COVID playoffs, he was the one who basically said, hey, this is the role. We're the bad guys. Let's go. And then this year, when they slugged their way to within 2 wins of another World Series title, he was the one who said, like, okay, he was the catalyst. And I think you remove that from this team. It's more, I think there's more than statistics you're removing from this team. I think it's a gut punch because according to the people who had been in Astros camp, they were all like, it was like Christmas morning for them waiting for Carlos to return. So now he's not back. Who are you going to replace him with? Who are you going to replace him with short term? And suddenly all those young prospects who are sitting there, you have all the pressure in the world that you have to replace Carlos Correa. And I don't think Altuve is the guy to be that leader on the team. Again, wonderful stats, whatever you think about him, but he wasn't Correa. And suddenly the American League West becomes more interesting. If I'm a Seattle fan, I'm drooling right now. If I'm an Angels fan, I'm looking around going, really? We still can't put together a contender? And if I'm a Rangers fan, I'm thinking, hey, why not? We signed a couple of good infielders. But the fact of the matter is the domino effect of this signing is just astronomical.
Yeah, every good team has a backbone, and I think it's pretty easy to see that was Carlos Correa in Houston. And if Houston doesn't land Trevor Story, and he's from Texas, so there's a chance there, I guess. But I feel like we haven't heard that much steam. Again, we're not really hearing that much right now with these two guys. I think teams are keeping it close to the vest. But
you think?
Yeah.
With what the Twins did?
But I mean, Houston having to have the position turned over to like Jeremy Pena and the rest of everything just kind of falling apart. It could be really, really brutal for Houston to lose this guy and not replace him with someone like Trevor Story.
How many headlines are going to say, Houston, you have a problem?
Oh, they're already writing themselves as we are sitting here.
But they're still asleep.
Right.
All right. Well, look at the fact of the matter is the Twins move that nobody saw coming, and you know what? That would have been, I think, the longest bet, like the odds of the Twins landing Carlos Correa would have been astronomical. If you put a bet down on that, you would be raking in the bucks right now. If you want to make any bets, go to BetOnline, which remains the #1 online spot for all your sports gambling needs. It's that time of the year again. College basketball's tournament is upon us. My Cal State Fullerton Titans got their butts kicked by Duke. I really thought they were going to beat Duke. That's why I put all my money down at BetOnline for Cal State Fullerton to beat Duke last night. I put it down on the 15th seed. From the latest odds, contests, players, props, BetOnline is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Las Vegas casino games. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is where the game starts. And hey, one last thing I want to bring up here before we decide to completely trash Brian Cashman in our final segment. Are you ready to live a more meaningful and purposeful life and leave an impact wherever you go? Mission Possible, written by New York Times bestselling author and former New York Mets prospect Tim Tebow, encourages you to find your inspiration, pursue your purpose, and create a life for yourself that counts. Ignite a new spark in your life through this inspirational listen. Mission Possible by Tim Tebow is available wherever audiobooks are sold. Okay, let's just talk about this for a second. I have been saying for a few years that the Yankees should probably no longer have Brian Cashman run the team. And he's been there since 1998. And, baseball's changed since then. Mm-hmm. And we have seen right now, beyond the fact that the Yankees went into this offseason with a glaring need at shortstop, and Seager, Baez, Simeon, Story, and Correa all available if you just open up your checkbook. They got Kiner Falefa, okay, and said they couldn't bring in Correa because for budgetary reasons, because the Yankees, how can the Yankees possibly compete with big centers like the Twins, the Padres?
Obviously,
it's not fair.
It's not fair.
But here's where it gets bizarre for me and why I don't understand Cashman's defenders. He was actually duped. The Twins pulled a hold my beer with the Yankees when all the Yankees had to do was spend money. So we don't have the money. Now, the Twins said, how do we get the money? Oh, I have an idea. Why don't we send off our prospects and have the Yankees remove $50 million from our payroll, which is now cleared up, that we could use to sign the very player that the Yankees could have just signed and kept Urshela or kept Sanchez either for another trade or for depth or whatever. And I look up and I say, like, the Twins outsmarted the Yankees and allowed the Yankees to make this deal possible. By outsmarting the Yankees, Minnesota landed Carlos Correa. And I mean, to me, this is a fireable offense. Why couldn't you get him? Well, we couldn't afford him. Well, why are we paying Josh Donaldson? Well, so we get Kiner Falefa, and they could get Correa. I mean, this is Tom Sawyer tricking the fence painting in Tom Sawyer. This is all sorts of, this is Ocean's 11. This is a con artist. When you look up and say, we were just taken. The Yankees just gave money to a Nigerian prince who sent an email saying, I need you to wire this money and then you'll get $1 million. I mean, everything that they could have fallen for, and they played deal or no deal and got Kiner Falefa, and the Minnesota Twins just got Carlos Correa. And the Twins if they wind up going to the A's or to the Reds and swipe away one of their available pitchers, the Twins might be better than the Yankees this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned Nigeria. It's giving me the look at me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the captain now. That's kind of what the Twins did.
The Nigerian prince and a Somali pirate. When you start bringing up those images, that's a bad sign for you, Brian Cashman.
It's not good. Yeah, no. I'm still just like kind of euphoric, but I just Minnesota never ever felt like they were going to be in the mix for Correa, and as fans, obviously Twins knew they were, but I still can't believe it. I mean, this is the first contract guaranteeing $100 million that they've handed out in free agency. Josh Donaldson's deal was, I think, 4 and 92 with an option that would have put it like right at 100 if it was not picked up. This, other than Joe Mauer, this is only the second $100 million contract they've handed out. And oh boy, I mean, 27-year-old free agent, if you're going to hand it out to somebody, it's going to be a 27-year-old superstar. And they
yes, that's a great point. And I almost slipped away that when it's so seldom that you have a free agent of this caliber who's this young.
Yep.
I mean, you had that with Harper, you had that with Machado, but you're seeing that most teams, when they see a talent like this, they do the math in their head and saying the amount of money it will take to replace this talent, we might as well just buy out this talent's prime.
Yep.
And this wound up not happening with Correa. So when someone like that is available, you have to you still have several years in his 20s, several years of his prime. And the Twins didn't even pull off we signed you to Corey Seager still got the longest contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I would rather have, no offense to Corey Seager, who's obviously who's a wonderful player,
right,
but I would rather have Correa than Seager.
Mm-hmm.
And the Twins aren't even holding the bag for oh God, we still have to pay him in like 15 years or whatever like that.
Right.
No. I mean, this is like everything about this deal, and I am gonna swing it back to the Yankees. Everything about this deal is what the Yankees should have done. Short-term deal. getting the big player in there. Oh, you could still bring in the Volpes and everything like that, and it doesn't cost you Urshela, doesn't cost you Sanchez, and you're not paying for Josh Donaldson to allow Minnesota to make the deal he should have made.
Well,
He was completely bamboozled.
and the only way this hurts the Twins is if, let's say, Carlos Correa wakes up tomorrow morning and his right arm falls off and he opts in for the last 2 years.
Even then, it's only 2 years. Even then, it's only 2 years.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a 10-year deal where anything can happen, or a 15-year deal or whatever. It's literally, it's a great deal for Correa because he can hit the market whenever he wants. If he looks at the market and says, oh, someone's going to give me $400 million, boom, go do it.
Yeah.
And if not, I'll just hang out here and get another $35 million. I don't know. All
right. Well, look at Brandon. This has been, there's not much more to say other than the fact that this is just shockwaves. Hey, thanks so much for getting up early. I know it's a little bit later in Minnesota than it is here in LA, but
45, we're still good.
The sun's not up here, but the sun's up. But the sun's not up. But the news is coming in hot. I can't even talk. I need to have a Built Bar. Yeah. But hey, Brandon, where can people follow you?
Well, if they're watching on the video, I got the Access Twins logo on my right shoulder here. AccessTwins.substack.com or that 90s baseball pod. If people are into the 1990s, our last guest was Paul Molitor. I think people have probably heard of him.
Whoa.
So yeah, check us out. Yeah.
Whoa, that's quite a get there. Hall of Famer Paul Molitor.
Between him and Buck Showalter, that's our two best gets so far.
Yeah, well, you can't get much better than a Hall of Famer.
No, manager I covered, so it was nice. He was great.
Well, we're trying to get some Hall of Famers on here, but we got Brandon Warne, who's as close as who's I like to call Hall of Fame adjacent. You can follow us at Lockdown MLB Pod, same on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, talking about the move that woke us up with Brandon Warne of Access Twins. This is Locked On MLB for an emergency episode on the 18th day of March, 2022. It's getting interesting. You can call me Sully.